Good morning or good evening wherever you are in the world. I am Regina Yao and I'm moderating today's Read for Pixels Google Hangout for the Pixel project. And today is the final Google Hangout we have for this year, final Read for Pixels Google Hangout that is. And before we introduce you to today's guest, just a little bit about Read for Pixels. Read for Pixels is, through Read for Pixels, the Pixel project is collaborating with 11 award-winning best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds towards the Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, which aims to raise $1 million to be shared between the Pixel project and the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence to keep our efforts to stop violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you a little bit more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. And you can find out more about the Pixel project and learn more about violence against women by visiting thepixelproject.net. We have a very special guest today, and it's Kevin Hearne, the creator of the Iron Druid Chronicles. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, how you doing? Great to see you.
It's great to meet you. Now, I know everyone probably knows this, but Kevin created Atticus, O'Sullivan, and Oberon, and Granuel. Yes, Granuel and Orlais, and these are some of the most beloved urban. Can we call it urban fantasy? Is that
sure?
Yeah, urban fantasy characters in the world today. And Kevin has also very generously donated some really cool stuff, like a one-to-one Skype chat, a signed copy of Shattered, which is the latest installment in the Iron Druid Chronicles, and a 100-word story that answers the question, are vampires allergic to peppers? And you can find out more at the Indiegogo page for Read for Pixels. But for now, I'll hand you guys over to Kevin, and Kevin is going to read a chapter from Shattered, right, Kevin?
Yes, I'm reading from Shattered in kind of a late chapter 2. I won't be finishing the chapter since there's kind of a spoiler reveal at the end, so I would rather keep something reserved there for people who might not have read it yet. But I've chosen this chapter. It's a Granuel chapter. And I've chosen it because it deals with some of the violence against women issues. And at this point, Granuel has been attacked by a demon called a Dabav. And it broke most of her bones, and she is able to heal from most of that, but not the tissue damage. She gets bruised as a result of it, and people misinterpret what happened. But she's with her wolfhound, Orla, and I am not Luke Daniels, and I don't quite have the hound voice, but I'll do what I can here. So, chapter 25 of Shattered. As soon as Loki is out of sight, I speak to my hound, mind to mind. I can hear her breathing, but she's sitting out of my line of sight. Orla, answer me, please. Huh? Granuel, hi! Where am I? The knot of worry in my chest loosens, and I tell her, you're in that hole in the ground with me. Oh? How am I here? There was a tall man, and, hey, Granuel hurt? She walks into my view, towering over me, and I manage a tiny smile. Yes, I will heal. Most of me will, anyway. Unlike the pain of my broken bones and pulverized muscles, the burn of Loki's brand on my arm cannot be quelled. It feels as if it's still sizzling, and I imagine that I can hear and smell the burning flesh. Tears leak out the sides of my eyes, the product of 1 part pain, 1 part embarrassment, and 2 parts relief that we are both still alive, but I don't make any noise. If Loki is lurking upstairs listening, I don't want him to derive any satisfaction from my distress. I wonder if cold iron will dissipate the magic of his mark enough to let me heal it. I'm quite some time away from being able to test that, since it would involve some arm movements I don't think I can pull off. I can't put any weight on my bones yet, lest they fracture further, and I resign myself to a long wait, exchanging comforting words with Orla, and suggesting that she take a nap by my side. I myself cannot fall asleep so easily. The light from the trench gets intense at noon, then fades as the entire day slides by in a fugue of physical discomfort and mental self-flagellation. The burn mutes itself to a dull throb over time, but the internal bashing intensifies. My own stupidity led me to walk this path instead of others, and I doubt I'll ever be able to forgive myself. As twilight begins to creep toward darkness, however, the last dregs of my patience burn away, and that, along with an urgent call of nature, urges me to get moving. Aware that the nerve block I'm using is actually denying me feedback on what works and what doesn't, I release it and cry out at the sudden return of agony from all my muscles. Orla starts awake from her snooze. What? Why yell? I unblocked the pain and it surprised me. Want to try moving. Okay. It hurts everywhere, and my body squirms to get away from the discomfort, but there's no way to escape since each contraction sets off a new complaint. Gritting my teeth, I slide my left hand to my jeans pocket, a slow operation and one that requires me to breathe in and out quickly, but at least my limb functions well enough. I wiggle my fingers in there and succeed in pulling out my cell phone, only to discover that its touch screen was completely crazed, shattered by the pressure and therefore useless. I think of trying voice commands, but it won't turn on. So much for calling Atticus. Testing my abs, I try to sit up, and they surprise me, letting me raise myself with only a mild complaint. Searching for the remains of the debav, I see nothing but a curled pile of black ribbon, like a discarded streamer, or a massive accident with a cassette tape, resting on the ground near my ankle. Could that have been it? Was that the thing that had shrouded the light and tried to pop me like a wine grape? I gasp when I look down at myself. My arms are swollen and purple, and I'm sure the rest of me, including my face and neck, is one massive bruise as well. Sitting up turns out to be the only halfway easy thing I can do. Everything hurts so much and I feel so brittle that each movement is slow and triggers a wince. It takes me most of the remaining daylight to zombie crawl 20 feet away and relieve myself, then return to lie down again. It taxes me more than I would have thought possible. Utterly exhausted, I reestablish the pain block and we sleep through the night, and upon waking, we are vastly thirsty. I ask Kaveri to create a small basin for us in the floor and allow water to seep through. I should probably explain. Kaveri is the elemental that she is in touch with as a druid. It is cool and clear and delicious. I scoop out a few cold mouthfuls before Orla comes over to lap up her fill, which produces considerable noise that I might normally find annoying, but in this situation is strangely welcome. Food? Orla asks once she finishes. We could use some, couldn't we? I don't think I'm up to it, though. I still need a long while to heal. My bones aren't strong yet. Would you like to hunt? I don't know if this is an ideal area for it. I can try. Stay away from people. Don't let them see you if you can help it. Run back here if they chase you. You won't come? I can't, Orla. But I should be safe here. You go see if you can find something and don't worry about me. With reluctance, Orla leaves and stays out for a couple hours. She returns with a bit of blood on her muzzle and lies down next to me, and we while away the time with language lessons for her. Thus I spend Sunday allowing my body to mend and my stomach to growl, trying to keep my zen, even though I am impatient to get out. When the sun slices down through the trench once more, it's sowing, and Atticus is probably wondering where I am, or he will when he wakes. I have to remind myself of the 12-hour difference between India and Colorado. While I think I might be able to join him, I don't think I want to just yet. He'd hug me and snap my collarbone again, and he would see that I've had my ass properly kicked. I'm still purple all over, and I'd have to explain. And there's the very real problem of Loki's mark to consider. Concealment from divination is, I have to admit, a great gift. I wouldn't have been able to achieve it myself without binding my amulet to my aura, and Atticus says there's no shortcut to that. It took him years to do it. But this gift of Loki's wasn't freely given. I'd firmly believe that even if he hadn't said as much. The price is that Loki can track me wherever I go. So if I go back to Colorado now, I'll potentially lead him directly to Atticus on a day when his guard is down, and Loki made no secret of the fact that he'd like to kill Atticus. It occurs to me that I might not be able to go home at all. If I want to keep Atticus safe, I might have to avoid him altogether, or get rid of the mark. Feeling more confident in my movements than I did before, I remove the cold iron amulet from my neck and press it against the set of runes branded into my flesh. They're red and puckered, but I can't feel them burning anymore. I reach out to the elemental for help. Kaveri, query, feel burn? Query, what burn? I try to direct the elemental's attention to Loki's brand, or mark, or whatever it is, but Kaveri doesn't recognize that there is anything wrong with me now except deep tissue damage. Examining it in the magical spectrum, I spy a soft white glow of magic within the circle, but nothing I can tease at or unbind. The repeated application of cold iron to the mark has no discernible effect. What the hell had he done? My frustration wants to have a good scream, but I bite it back. I haven't tried everything yet. Perhaps a cup of immortality would restore me to a state where the mark couldn't cling to me. Or maybe Atticus would be able to think of something when I finally saw him. I give some thought to the realities of travel. Loki would no doubt like to have a shot at destroying Tir na Nog, but shifting there through tethered trees would be impossible for him, since he is not bound to Gaia. I could still use them all I wished, but I could never use an old way again, or it would give him a path to follow. I don't imagine he could track me in Tir na Nog, it being a plane entirely outside his purview, but he'd probably assume I was there if I wasn't to be found on Earth. Hungry, Ganuel? My stomach growls in agreement. Yeah, I think we can get out of here now. We'll have to stick to the bare earth at all times, though, because I need to keep healing. I pick up Skawaja, moving slowly. Even though I have the pain locked down, I can feel the tightness in my muscles. Now that my bones are in shape to carry my weight for a while, it's time to get everything loosened up. Ready to get out of here? Yes! Taking one last look around, I see nothing but the blackened spool of thick ribbon that must be the remains of the Dabav. I see no head, no limbs, no tail, no true way to associate its physical form with the thing that nearly crushed me to death. It is simply the darkness that lives in the closets or under the bed, amplified and malevolent and much better off dead. It takes me some time and effort to climb the stairs. I have to lean forward and half crawl, a ladder climbing motion, to manage it. I'm sweating and Orla is panting by the time we emerge into the sunlight. Kaveri obliges me by filling in the room and closing up the trench behind us, and when it's nothing more than an undistinguished patch of a paddy, I say, good riddance. But in truth, I'm well aware that I won't ever be rid of that dark hole in the ground. It will be the colossal bungle I replay in my mind for centuries hence, should I be fortunate to live so long. And if I should ever be proud enough to think someone else stupid, this will be a flagon of humility, ready to be poured on my head. Of course, I didn't choose to fail. Failure is rarely a conscious decision, and it's often out of our control, determined by things like physics and circumstance and other people. What we can always control, however, is our reaction to failure. I shamble in jerky movements on semi-rural roads back to the hotel where I need to retrieve my laptop and things and check out. We disturb the hell out of everyone who sees us. Most of them give me a wide berth and try not to make eye contact. One man in particular, however, takes issue with me walking around in such a condition all by myself, or something. I honestly don't know why he's upset, because I don't understand a word he says. Maybe he doesn't like the fact that Orla is not on a leash. Maybe he recognizes me from somewhere. It's conceivable that he saw me with Laksha at one point during the night we were freeing people from Rakshasas, and now I'm a witch in his eyes. His tone grows more aggressive when I don't respond to him, and he blocks my path and gets in my face a little bit, earning a growl from Orla. I think he interprets that as a threat I instigated, or perhaps an insult, instead of realizing that maybe he's the one being a dick. When I try to walk around him, he reaches out to grab me. I don't even think about it. Skawaja whips around and clocks him on the side of the head. There's no strength behind it, and he's not seriously hurt, but now I've picked a fight, and he's the type who thinks he has to put me in my place. I'm in no shape to deal with him gracefully, so I poke him in the gut with a staff when he lunges at me, forcing him to step back, then employ a trick of Atticus's and bind the fabric covering his knees to the earth. He's forced to a kneeling position and stuck there, and now I won't have to injure him. His rage face is pretty funny, though, and I laugh and flip him the bird before turning invisible and camouflaging Orla. We leave him shouting in the dust as people begin to draw closer out of curiosity. All he's doing is ensuring that there will be an audience when he eventually has to surrender his pants. If I wasn't a witch to him before, I definitely am now. The one who got away. Whatever he was trying to accomplish, he failed. I can tell already that his reaction will not result in any personal growth. We sneak past the doorman at the hotel because I imagine he might try to refuse me entrance looking as I do. Once I make it to the room and drop my invisibility, I spy myself in the mirror and catch my breath in shock. Heck, I would have tried to refuse me entrance. An interesting fact, however, is that my neck is fairly free of bruises in the front. A cold iron amulet in the hollow of my throat protected that part of me. Had it been bound to my aura, like Atticus, I might have been immune to the debuff. I'm still bruised around the side of my neck, and the debuff had restricted my breathing, but the amulet had saved my windpipe from being crushed, even as my bones were breaking. And I think I'm going to stop right there. The rest of it is, she deals with a little bit more regarding, people's reactions as she's leaving India. But you get the general idea that she feels some of this, she feels some of that victim blaming that sometimes goes on. She even has some of that going on internally. She's moving past it, but it still slips in there. Even though this was not really a domestic abuse situation, it was it was a monster or a demon that did this to her. That's kind of my shorthand. I can't bring myself to write direct domestic violence or anything like that because it's too disturbing to me. So I kind of use metaphors.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, it is domestic violence and any form of violence against women. It is really disturbing, and there are writers who do write about it. And honestly, as someone who sees who gets cases sent in every day, and we have to disseminate it to the world to raise awareness. Like, there's even something they call vicarious PTSD or something like that. I can't remember the exact term, but a lot of activists and advocates who work to stop violence against women, we feel it too. We get it secondhand, but it does give you nightmares. So, Kevin, you have so many questions. They're all piling in. And you have so many viewers. Yay, you're winning over football, I think. So, yeah.
That's a stretch, but okay. We'll pretend.
Yeah. Just to give everyone an idea of how this is going to go, Kevin and I will be doing a little discussion about female characters in Kevin's books, pop culture and geek culture and women, and why Kevin supports stopping violence against women. And then we're going to turn it over to your questions, and keep sending in your questions, keep upvoting the questions. Like Chuck Wendick said 2 weeks ago, this is like Google Hangout idol. You keep voting people up or voting people down. So the first question, obviously, because Kevin, you were reading a passage from Granuel's perspective is, as a male storyteller, what is your definition of, in open and close inverted commas, a strong female character? Do you think it's important for authors to include strong female characters in their stories and novels and songs?
Well, yes, I believe that strong characters, period, are necessary, and some of them happen to be female. It's kind of the way I look at it. It's not a question for me of trying to create a strong female character. It's trying to make every character a strong one, whether they are male or female or of various religious creeds or various racial backgrounds. All of those characters need to be strong, and I don't think of it as necessarily, the strong female character with the quotes that you were, putting there. It has become a term that's a little annoying sometimes because there's some, it's acquired baggage, Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what I do, is I just try to treat every character as a human with their own set of problems, which is really, what the whole, I guess feminism and everything is really about. That we just want equal rights. It is not about putting men down. It is about raising women up, and because there is no equality as it is, And there should be, if we are in a country that says, I'm obviously speaking about the United States, but the United States makes a big deal about everybody being equal. However, women are clearly not equal, and LGBTQ people are not equal, and so we are not living up to the values of our Constitution yet, or even the Declaration of Independence. So hopefully we will someday. Hopefully soon.
Yeah, it was, it's the United States is still, and much of the Western world is still, light years ahead of, in terms of feminism. I mean, I'm currently in Southeast Asia, and I come from an Asian culture, and I'm ethnic Chinese, and what I see is, from my point of view, is feminism. If you think of feminism, it's in many parts of the world, like Asia, we're 20 years behind the curve because of a lot of cultural, restrictions and traditions that are really, really firmly rooted. But with the U.S., you have a chance, with the culture that you have a chance to actually zoom forward with it. But in the last 3 or 4 years, I watched horrified, as the Violence Against Women Act took a huge struggle to pass, and it never did before that. I watched in horror as politicians from right-wing politicians in your country just used women's rights and as a political football. Not just the politicians as a whole. It's just like a big political football. Women's rights are human rights. It shouldn't be used as a bloody political football. That's what I think. It's leave it out of it. You want to argue over the budget and stuff, do that. But yeah, so it's interesting that you bring it up. The thing about equality, and it's one of the values of one of the most American values we can think of. But like you said, you guys still haven't reached that level yet with women, with LGBT, with my people of color. But you know what? You guys have a really good shot of getting there because it is in your constitution. It is in your culture. You just have to wade through everything that's going on now. And I mean, going back to what we were discussing just now, it's when people think of strong female characters, they think of Ripley from Aliens. They think of the Terminator movies. I mean, what would your definition of strong be for a character, female or otherwise?
Yeah, there's it's kind of interesting how the strong female character means basically we have grafted some of the male warrior characteristics onto the female, and then okay, we're done. But there's a lot of other kinds of strength. So Granuaile in this particular book, while she does her fair share of butt kicking, she also has to deal mentally with some setbacks, not just the one that we were, that I was reading from that particular chapter. But she has some other things happen to her, and she has to figure out how she's going to deal with this. And to me, she is a much more interesting character in my mind as a writer than Atticus is. Atticus is 2,000 years old, and he kind of knows what he feels. He does have some issues he's working through, absolutely. But Granuaile is us. She is of our generation, of our culture, and she is now gifted with these powers, and how she deals with that is fascinating to me. So it's the fact that she has some desires to maybe abuse those powers, she feels those, and she is resisting that, and I really enjoy exploring her character, basically. She is fascinated with everything that happens regarding her connection to the Earth, much more than Atticus is, because it's all new to her. So I think that Granuaile is the kind of character I hope that people would look for as being a little bit more well-rounded than just I can beat you up,
Mm-hmm.
like the Ripleys or whatever. Ripley actually is a pretty dang good character. She's pretty deep besides that. People ignore that because some of her depth, they ignore the depth that she does have because, in other scenes she's carrying giant guns and flamethrowers, but she does have some depth to her that often goes unnoticed.
Yeah, I think Sigourney Weaver is awesome. I mean, she is one of the best actors out there today, and she's doing great. She's been doing such good work. And the thing with Sigourney Weaver is she always gets these really interesting characters to play, and she plays them. She makes them so well rounded. I mean, even in Avatar, when she's all CGI'd up, you can see the inflection in her voice, and every character that she plays as an actor is very, very layered. So so the female characters that she made immortal, including Ripley, I think that will always remain in the canon of pop culture. They point the way to more writers and actors and artists, treating women as viable characters and protagonists to have in stories, and that kind of leads to the next question that I have, which is, we're seeing what some people call the Hermione effect now in pop culture, which is kind of, that name is kind of relevant now because Emma Watson just made that speech at the UN for
Yes.
UN Women to kick off He for She, and there are lots of strong, capable, and complex protagonists, like Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games, and has that trend influenced your creative decisions with Granuel and other female characters in the Iron Druid Chronicles? How are do you have any other female characters besides Granuel that are coming up in the books that you're writing?
Other characters like Granuel? Well,
Yeah.
I've been dealing with nothing precisely like Granuel, who's really one of my protagonists, but a lot of the other female characters in my books have different sets of qualities that are all strengths as well. Flittish and Breed and the Morgan and some of the others are absolutely, sometimes people tell me that they really like the Morgan more than I think the Morgan is scary as hell. But, people are really like her for some reason sometimes. And so it's interesting how, these different characteristics that these different characters will have will appeal to different folks. And so nobody precisely like Granuel. That would diminish Granuel in a way. So, but yes, I continue to have interests in all characters of all genders.
Yeah. You think it's like when I mentioned the Hermione effect just now, do you think it's just a trend, or do you think that's going to continue? It's another milestone in how pop culture is evolving with female.
I think it's absolutely positive. You know who I really enjoy right now? I read comics. I'm kind of a comic book dude, so I am loving the fact right now that we are having such well-written characters in The Rat Queens by Curtis. I'm probably going to screw up his last name. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's Wiebe. He's the writer for that one. I love Saga. I love G. Willow Wilson's Ms. Marvel. My daughter and I love it. We can't wait.
We have a recording of Willow's interview with us, right? And
Yes.
we could send you the link because I think our daughter would love it. She talks a lot about being writing Ms. Marvel and being how parents, like you're a parent too, you have a daughter, and she talks about how parents need to and teachers need to set a good example, and she talks about how one of her teachers, while she was growing up, listened to kids spout racist stuff in class, and then he was always, and he just stood up and said, "You will not hate in my class," and and she said it's the same thing if anyone felt the sex is nonsense, I guess. So yeah, so Willow's really, really cool. She, Miss Marvel is, I mean, Kamala Khan.
Yeah, she's wonderful. I love
Yeah,
her.
yeah. So moving, now that we talked about Willow, that kind of segues nicely again into the next question. Yay! So geek culture in general has had its share of critics saying that it's still too male-dominated, despite a number of prominent female authors who are well-respected, well-known, like Willow. And as a male author, what do you think needs to be done to make geek culture as a whole, whether it's comics or gaming or books, what do you think is going to make it more welcoming for women and girls?
I think it would be fabulous if social media, I don't know what to call them, but if social media like Twitter or Facebook or Tumblr or the new Elo had actual effective ways to shut down trolls and misogynist, haters on there, that could make the atmosphere quite a bit more welcoming. But I don't know, the difficulties involved in that, obviously. It seems to me that they could all be doing more. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think they probably could be doing more to and listen to women when they say, you know what, this is threatening and this is abusive and it needs to stop. Maybe they could just say, yeah, we should do something about that. And I think that recently, because we have had so much attention on very high-profile cases like Ray Rice and so on, that maybe we're taking a step in the right direction, and the Pixel Project is doing something good too. Just raising awareness and starting to talk about it makes people realize that, yes, something should be done. I just saw a commercial, actually, about an hour ago for something called nomore.org, and it was a bunch of...
nomore.org.
Yeah, so that was great. That was the first time I'd seen it, but it's great that a lot of this stuff is coming out, that people are talking about it, and I think change can occur if we continue to shine a light on it and not ignore it.
Yeah, and pop culture nowadays, we feel it's really, really important. That's why the Pixel Project does stuff like Read for Pixels, because you guys are telling all those stories. Authors and filmmakers and musicians are telling stories in different mediums, and then you sort of marry that with social media that you mentioned, and kaboom! Everyone everywhere. If you want to read Iron Druid Chronicles, I mean, I'm in Southeast Asia and I'm reading Iron Druid Chronicles. I'm fangirling over Iron Druid Chronicles, and Oberon, and I'm sure there's someone in Russia who's reading Chuck's books, Chuck Wendig's books, and Willow Wilson's Miss Marvel is everywhere. You can buy, because it's published by Marvel. They distribute it everywhere, and basically, how do you think, so that kind of feeds into my next question. I keep saying feed in. No breakfast yet, that's why I keep thinking of food. Yay. Do you think it's important for influential authors such as yourself, who are read all over the world, to make a conscious effort to include characters both male and female in your stories that show readers the importance of respecting women as equals and as human beings, or do you think that would be too preachy?
Oh no, I think it's important, and I don't think it's preachy. If there is a need for equality, and it's pretty darn clear that there is, I don't see what there is to argue about. So yes, there's the short answer. Yes.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah, because it's this fine balance, right? As a storyteller, that you have to respect story, but you have to tell a darn good story, because that's what your job is, right? But to work social messaging into it, you have to do it very subtly, kind of what you did, Granuel, in that chapter that you read, right? You didn't touch on domestic violence directly, but you touched on it. You transposed it into a different situation, and people can see the reactions to someone who might have looked like she had gone through domestic violence, and that's in a way that's difficult to do, I guess. Was it difficult for you to transpose it, or just a way, or was it actually easier for you to write it that way?
Well, it's easier for me to write it that way because I cannot bring myself to directly write about it. I know that some authors are cool with it and can manage it, and I applaud their ability to do so. But I can't directly address domestic violence myself. I can't write a rape or anything. I just cannot bring myself to do it. So I think that there are other kinds of violence that we could address, and I try to bring those up with Grania Whale's character rather than the direct stuff.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, how can authors like yourself best support efforts to kick off social change to end violence against women?
Well, I think this is part of it. I think that charity, sorts of drives like this to raise awareness are certainly helpful. And then, just don't sweep it under the rug in your stories. These are important issues that, in part of our society that need to be addressed and should be fixed. And if you ignore it, then it just sort of festers. And it's been doing that for a long time, and we can, we can change things, if we put put our best effort behind it. So.
Yeah, I guess kind of like what Joe Hill said. He said something that resonated with just about every author I talked to, is telling the right stories. That's the phrase that he used. Yeah. That telling the right stories to get the right message across, but telling the right stories can also be difficult sometimes. And I've the final question before we go into the whole pile of questions just exploding right here. So Kevin, you have been so incredibly supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign and the Pixel Project's anti-violence against women work as a whole. Why do you, as a father, as someone who used to be a teacher, and a writer, support the cause to end violence against women? This is kind of like a Captain Obvious question, but I think it's interesting to hear what we think is interesting, is to hear what you guys have to say directly. You have to say directly about why you support it, because everyone has a different reason.
Well, yeah, I mean, I basically want my daughter to have a world where she doesn't have to worry about it so much. That would be lovely. That's the world I would like her to live in. And I basically, as a teacher, I would run across kids from time to time who had been abused, and it just breaks your heart. How can they, concentrate on, Shakespeare that day when they're worried, about getting beaten again because they already have been. And so that kind of crystallized for me very early on in my career, and something that just has to stop. And thank goodness, we have child protective services and things like that. But I know that, if the kid is getting abused, it's quite possible the woman in the house could be getting abused also. So it's all of that stuff is connected. So that's kind of what got me here.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you for sure that if kids come from an abusive household, their educational prospects will are bleak, because my mother grew up. My mother came from a dirt poor background family, and her father was abusive. Whenever he had too much to drink, he was a raging alcoholic. Whenever he had too much to drink, he would come back and they would hide. Like, my mom has 10 brothers and sisters, and her mom and my grandmother, and everyone will hide. Like, they'll hide under the bed. When you see Dad drunk, you just run. You hide, you run to your neighbors. But that also meant that it disrupted school. They couldn't finish homework. They had to do homework when they could, because they knew that nearly, I wouldn't say every night, but it happens frequently enough that schoolwork's disrupted. So not all of them got to go to college. Not all of them, all of them managed to finish high school, but not everybody got to go to college, and you think of the wasted. I mean, as a teacher, right? Because I told you I tutor in the evenings as well. You start thinking about the wasted human potential there. It doesn't matter if it's a little girl or a little boy. If you come from a violent home, chances are you're not gonna, like you said, like you notice as a teacher, the kids are not going to be focusing in school because they're so afraid to go home. They're so afraid, homework home. How am I going to get my homework done, when dad's coming home in a rampage and we're trying to keep out of his way. Anyway, okay, so let's go to the, yeah. Now I get quite angry when I start talking about this. So it's great to have you here. So let's get really positive and let's go to the questions. Oh my God, Kevin, you have like 30 questions here.
Let's do it.
Okay, you're good? Okay, so let's see which question got upvoted the most. Okay, here's one from Catherine Rodriguez, and her question got upvoted 9 times. Catherine asks, are you considering writing full books from the perspective of Granuel or Owen?
Yes.
That's it?
That's yes. Yes. I am considering it, but the thing is that I still have quite a bit to go before I can really get there, commit to that. So it's a little bit too early to say anything beyond the fact that yes, I'm considering it.
Owen is like an interesting, you mentioned about, just now during our discussion, you mentioned that Granuel is interesting because she represents us in this generation, and Atticus is like 2,000 years old, so he has had time to work through his issues and stuff. But Owen's an interesting case. Technically he's older than Atticus, but he's been in stasis for so long, and then, most of the laughs come from him, like, not understanding that you can't do certain things now in this day and age, like grab the barmaid or something.
Yeah. He is a different set of characteristics entirely because of the culture shock that he's experiencing from jumping forward in time. So he's a lot of fun to write as well. And so, yeah, I'm considering it. I just don't know what will happen yet because I still have 2 more books to write.
Okay, so that's done. Come on. Okay, the next question is from Scott Kane, and this has been uploaded 8 times. Scott asks, have you considered or been approached about translating the Iron Druid tales to film?
I've been approached, but the Hollywood approach is, hey, we're really excited about this. Woo, we're going to make this amazing. And then you don't ever hear from them again. So that's happened several times. And, so until somebody actually puts a contract in front of you and, there's money involved and, things like that, it's not really serious. So nobody has seriously approached me. Let's say that. There's just been the typical Hollywood meaningless, fluffy conversation and no real movement on the project.
Yeah, it could take 20 years, like Outlander, Diana Gabaldon talks about 20 years before Ron D. Moore came along. And, I was just watching Outlander yesterday, and I just, what popped in my head, Kevin? I'm like, oh man, wouldn't it be great if Ron D. Moore made the Iron Druid Chronicles like that level of detail?
That would be fabulous, but yeah, just not in my power.
Yeah, but it would be, I think the Iron Druid Chronicles would be better as a TV show than a film, but that's just my personal opinion. Okay, next by J. Bear. B-A-I-R, Bear, I think. We've seen the Morrigan once from Beyond the Veil. Will we see her again?
You guys keep asking me yes or no questions. Yes. How's that? Can't give anything else away.
Okay. More yes or no questions.
Yeah, and that's fine. There's a bunch of them. Let's work through them. That's great.
Okay. Okay, so... Oh, this guy has a great handle. His name is Rush Kryptonite. Once the book series is finished, Will you continue to write short stories based on Atticus's past?
Quite likely. It just depends on how much time I have to work on it and what kind of historical situation I'd like to explore. All of those involve quite a bit of research for me, and I have to be kind of engaged and interested in researching it before I go there. So the Chapel Perilous was a lot of fun for me to write, and I do have plans for others. I actually have one that I'm going to be putting into an anthology soon, and I have to write it actually before December, so I'll be getting on that pretty quickly. And it will be Atticus during Shakespeare's time in England. So.
Atticus in a ruff? You know, one of those like big ruffs around the Elizabethan ruffs around the neck. Oh, awesome!
Yeah, awesome is a word that you could use. Yeah, yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So that's done. Okay. John Miller asks. Again, I guess this is a yes or no question. Can we look forward to graphic novels based on the Iron Druid?
That would be fun. In fact, I originally conceived the series as a graphic novel or a webcomic. And so, and then every so often, I will get fan art from some very talented people who draw just amazing renditions of Atticus and Oberon or Granuaile and so on. And every time I see it, I think, gosh, this would be fabulous in graphic novel format, the way that you could take the time to draw all these things. So I would love for that to happen, but again, just like TV or film, it's really out of my control. You need to have somebody who wants to pursue that to kind of go there. I personally am not an artist, and with the commitment that I have for just writing books, I don't have time to also adapt, graphic novels as well. So somebody else would need to make that happen instead of me. But I'm certainly open to getting it there if somebody wanted to approach me about it.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is we were talking before we went on air, and I mentioned Cassandra Clare, and what she's been doing with artists is they've been illustrating little vignettes of offshoots of her stories, and they've been including it in the book together with the books as a little bonus. So one day maybe an Iron Druid little comic vignette might pop up and surprise all of us. That would be great.
It would.
Oh, so related to that, before we move on to all the other questions, who is your dream artist for the Iron Druid Chronicles if it ever makes it to comic book form?
Oh gosh, I don't know that I have one because I'm so in one. I mean, I would like to do different ones, sort of the way Neil Gaiman did different artists through the Sandman.
Yeah.
He had different artists for different story arcs, and I would enjoy that as well. I think Fiona Staples is amazing. And I like the guy who's drawing Rat Queens as well. I think his name is Rock Upchurch, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a completely fun thing, I would love Rob Guillory, the guy who does Chew, to do a story with Atticus. It would be so amusing to see his art applied to it. But those are all sort of dream scenarios.
Yeah, you know who would be an interesting choice? I'm not sure. The guy who draws Hellboy, is it?
Mike Mignola.
Yeah, that level, that style, that level of detail. You imagine Atticus being drawn like that? Oh man, that would be so cool. All right. Here's a question from Marissa McTong.
Marissa.
Yeah.
Let's just call her Marissa.
I'm sorry, Marissa. I'd rather not mangle your name. Okay. What do you do if you are struck with some inspiration while you're out and about? Do you have a notebook or something that you jotted down in, or ... question mark?
Okay. What I do is try to write it down as soon as I possibly can, like on a napkin or so. I don't carry a notebook with me, but I will sometimes write things down on anything available, an envelope that's sticking around somewhere or a napkin or whatever, and then try to, once I get home back to the laptop, I'll record a note for that.
Okay. Yay, I'm trying to get at least everyone's asking multiple questions, so we're just gonna see if we can answer at least one question from everybody, from each person. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. It's not a yes or no question. Maybe it is. I don't know. So it's from Robert Hayden, and he asks, have you ever thought about trying a collaborative crossover story with other urban fantasy authors like Jim Butcher and Carrie Vaughn? What have you?
I am considering. Well, we've actually begun the early stages of planning a crossover with Jay Wells, and she has a demon cat named Gagool, and we're thinking about doing a story with Gagool and Oberon, and that would be it would be so much fun. And we have had a great time talking about it already. I don't know when our schedules will allow us to do that, but we hope to get it done someday. But that's basically the obstacle to any sort of crossover is we already have books that we're contracted to do. We really don't have time to do bonus crossover kinds of things unless we make time somewhere, and often we just can't. Okay,
that's done. Oh, and okay, Lucas Coffee asks,
okay,
hey, will you pronounce some of the more difficult Gaelic just for fun?
Without him writing it out, I wouldn't know what that would be. What's difficult to him might not be difficult to me. I honestly don't know. I don't know what he's asking for me to read right there. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you speak Gaelic, Kevin?
No, I can't. I can't. I have to get people to help out with that, and it's just another part of the research.
Okay. Yay, there's so many. Can you stay a little while more beyond the hour, Kevin? Because there's so many.
Sure. Let's work through them. Let's do it.
Okay. Oh, Marissa said, just to let you know, FYI, she says, hee, it's pronounced Matanyo. It's totally okay. It happens all the time.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Who else is asking questions? This is a beautiful one. You'll like this. It's from Travis Cahill, and he asks, one of the questions I fell in love with was the widow McDonough. Will we be able to see her again at all? Part of the reason I connected with her so much is that I work with elders with Alzheimer's and can see so much of my residents in her.
Well, she does get a mention in Shattered, and that will be the last one. She has left this particular plane of existence, and she won't be coming back. But she did get kind of a send-off in Shattered, the seventh book. So if you've read that, Travis, or I'm sorry, it looks like Trevis, T-R-E, maybe it's pronounced Trevis,
yeah.
Travis. But whatever, if you've read that particular book already, then you've seen the last mention of the widow. But thank you for the work you're doing with Alzheimer's patients. My dad had it, and means a lot.
Okay. Oh, your dad had it? Oh, okay. Wow, that must. All right, so we have another question. This is interesting. It's from Renita Boniak. Boniak?
Yeah, I met Renita in Kentucky. How you doing?
Yeah,
I
and she
think.
says you have an interesting forum for women's rights. With Owen learning how women have evolved, do you plan to deal with this in the future?
Um, Evolved. I'm not. Well, I'm not sure that I am going to be dealing with evolution, since he's only 2,000 years and not, the incredible amount of time that evolution normally manifests itself, I guess. But definitely there will be issues, because that Owen has to deal with, because he has to learn quite a bit about our modern society, and he will screw up quite a bit. So hopefully that asks or answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, like that scene in the bar, right? When he's there with Atticus and he leers at the barmaid, and Atticus starts giving him the 101 about you cannot grab barmaids now, you cannot forcibly sit them on your lap, you cannot do this and that, and he looks so for he was like, what? I thought that was like, wow, Atticus giving him a 101 about how to treat women. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question from Brandon Haddock, and
Okay.
he says, which character do you feel is the most important for Atticus's development and why?
Um, I think that, gosh, the most important. That is a tough one because I would kind of ping pong around a bunch of different ones. Um, I think that Oberon is important for him in just keeping him centered and living in the present. It's really the purpose of Oberon. The original purpose of Oberon, for me, was to keep Atticus centered in the now and not to live in the past and become distant from, contemporary humans. Animals always live in the present. So by binding with an animal, that's what Atticus is very conscious of what he's doing. I want to bind to an animal because they do live in the present, and that keeps me here, and needing to adapt and so on to current situation. So I'll go with that. I don't know if I could pick somebody else otherwise, but Oberon is a constant need for him.
Okay. Next question is from Karen Sargent.
Okay.
And Karen asks, she says, it was great to see Hal and the Wolves have a much larger role in Shattered. Can we expect more from them in the future since Owen has such a great rapport with them?
Yes, you can expect that, definitely. Hal and the werewolves are going to become a bigger deal. Plus, Sam and Ty, the Flagstaff pack leaders, they're going to be more involved as well. So you will see them come back, and Greta, of course. I love Greta. So that was one of the things. Actually, if you're talking about other characters that you asked me a question a while back about it, what other characters besides Grindwheel are you really interested in? And I like Greta quite a bit. If she was a character that I had been planning on developing for so long. She was in every single book. She was mentioned or appeared in books 1 through 6, but in this very, very tiny role. And so she had been there since the beginning, and it wasn't until book 7 that I finally got to flesh her out as a character and give her, a background and everything like that. And so I was so happy that I finally was able to do that. So, yeah, she and Owen have an interesting relationship, and that will continue to be interesting.
Okay, Brandon Bradley asks, yeesh, okay, come on Google Hangout questions, right. What was your initial motivation for the Iron Druid series?
My initial motivation, mostly to entertain myself. I had completed an epic fantasy and sent it off for submission, and I had received a preliminary reply. Hey, this is pretty good. We're going to pass it up the chain to another editor. And so then I was all excited, but I knew that I would have to wait quite a while because that's the way publishing works. So while I was waiting, basically, to hear back about my epic fantasy, I that's when I wrote Hounded. And it was basically to fill the time while I was waiting to hear back on the epic. Well, the epic, eventually got rejected, and then Hounded was accepted. So that's basically what happened there. It was my initial motivation was just to keep my creative mind going while I was waiting to hear back on something else, and then it wound up being the thing that got published instead of the epic.
Okay. Right. Matthew Laird asks, and this was upvoted 5 times, how much control do you have over the audiobook, and are you pleased with the Audible version?
I have little to no control over the audiobook. I basically sign a contract saying we're going to give you some money and thanks, and then they go and they hire the voice narrator, the actor, and so on and so forth. They ask me for pronunciations, but I don't get any input on things like performance. That's up to the narrator to do whatever they want. So when you say Audible, I'm not sure, is it Audible worldwide or is that just the United States? Because I have different versions.
I think it's just the United States, because outside the United States, it's really difficult to download. I mean, that's why a lot of people here read books like me. I read my ebooks on an Android, because we can download from Google Play, but we can't download from audiobooks from Android, but we can't download from Amazon. They have some weird stuff going with copyright things.
Okay. I think Luke Daniels does a fabulous job. So I don't have but any control over a lot of that stuff. All I can do is write the books. So.
Okay. So. Okay, John Miller asks, a good portion of Atticus's backstory has centered around Tempe, Arizona, which you lived near until recently. What prompted your recent move to Colorado?
A lot of things. I have been wanting to live in Colorado for quite some time. And it's kind of a dream come true to be able to get here finally. I've my dog apparently wants to come in.
Hello, doggies.
Yeah, the pug. He's like, hey, come on, pay attention to me. I wanted to be in Colorado for quite some time. My wife and I honeymooned here, and we took vacations up here a lot, and every time we came up, we were like, we should live here. So finally we do, and we just went up to the Rocky Mountains today, actually, for a little day trip, and went around Bear Lake and saw a bunch of elk, and it was beautiful. We love it here.
Okay. So Renee Wilson, or Renee Wilson, I think. How did you get the idea for Atticus, and do you continue to research for his vast amount of knowledge?
I actually started out with Oberon and then built up from there because I wanted a magic user who could talk to dogs. And so I had to come up with, there were wizards or warlocks and things like that, but I didn't like that going that route, because a lot of times when you see wizards or warlocks associated with animals, the animal is a familiar, like in a subservient position, or just servile to the wizard. And I didn't want it to be that kind of relationship. I wanted the dog to be more of a friend. So I thought a druid might work out well. And then once I kind of had that idea, I researched it some more, and Atticus was gradually, sort of born from that. So once I had these two characters, a druid and his hound, I had to start asking myself questions about, well, what kind of trouble would they get into, and so on and so forth. And the plot kind of suggested itself that way rather, than so I began with my characters, and then the plot came from that, not the other way around. Some people have a plot and then they dump characters into them, but I always start with characters first.
I was curious, you named him Atticus. Do you name him after Atticus Finch?
Yep. He actually says that directly in the 4th book. He
yes?
is,
cool.
Yeah, he speaks to Frank Chischili, and Frank mentions that Atticus is not the name he would expect for a druid, and Atticus says that he took that particular name because of To Kill a Mockingbird, and Atticus Finch in that novel is the kind of man he would want to be. So it's a reminder of a constant reminder, really, of what he is trying to become. So.
Oh, Atticus Finch is badass. He's one of the
Yes.
most badass characters in I think, all of literary history. Okay. Next question. Jeff Augie asks, will you consider writing out the Dead Flea Scrolls?
I've written some, believe it or not. I have actually written some of it. I think a page and a half or so, and it was tremendously entertaining. But again, the pressure of the books that I have to write under contract kind of prevents me from, going off and doing other projects that are not under contract. So maybe I also have people asking me to write the book of 5 meets, which is something that got mentioned in Shattered. So I have a little bit of a tiny project for the Book of 5 Meats coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It basically one recipe from Oberon from the Book of 5 Meats. I'm going to be doing that soon, and that's going to be very fun to write. But those are projects I would love to be able to have time to do, and if I do get the time, heck yes, I'm going to do it. But don't hold your breath, because I don't know when I'll have the time.
Yeah, kitchen testing's fun because I've written a cookbook before, if the whole team wrote it, but kitchen testing is like, oh man, you eat, like, at the end of doing a recipe book, you will have put on 15 pounds at least.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian Lemon asks, did you include the scene in Windsor Forest with Hearne because of the similarity with your name?
No, no. Hearne the Hunter was always planned to be part of that book 6 from book 1. If you look in Hounded, Hearne the Hunter and his relationship with Flittish, as Flittish is basically friends with him. That gets mentioned in Hounded I think in chapter 3 when Flittish first arrives. So. I'd always planned on it to happen, as long as the series actually got to book 6. And I'm glad it got that far. I didn't know in the beginning whether I would get to write any more after the first 3. So I'm glad it got to 6 and beyond. But no, it's just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with my family name at all. So.
Okay. Donna F. asks, how do you pronounce Atticus's Gaelic name?
Shiahan.
Shiahan?
Yep, Shiahan.
Oh.
In modern times, it gets shortened down to just 2 syllables. It's Shian, and it often winds up being a surname, actually, Shihan. So yeah, it's Shiahan is the the original pronunciation.
Okay. So we've answered most of everyone's questions at least once, but there are a couple more. We got to wrap this up soon, I guess, because it's getting really dark where you are, and Google Hangout has a habit of cutting people off once the end time has arrived because you have to set it. So let's go for a few more interesting questions, a handful more, and then I'll trot out the little slide that we put together. Showing people where to go to get the goodies that Kevin donated, like a one-to-one Skype chat. If you want to talk more about sausages and Atticus and Oberon and what's that taco? Taco. You did something about tacos, right?
I did. Yeah, the Holy Taco Church.
Yes, the Holy Taco Church. Go get that. But before we do that, we'll answer a few more of your questions. And It's from Jay Bear, and this is cool. He says, is your daughter a fan of your books beyond the fact that you're her dad? Do you ever get nervous about her reaction or approval? And Jay Bear says, I'm fangirling so hard right now, thank goodness no one has any idea how totally uncool I'm acting right now.
Well, hi, Jay. Thank you for the question. Okay, so my daughter actually has read like small parts of it. Because I will read them to her as I'm writing them, but she hasn't sat down and read them. She's into YA books and stuff like that right now. She's 14, and so that's cool. I figure she will get more into them and be more interested when she's a little bit older. Right now, what we bond over is the comic book thing. We go to the comic book store together and pick out the stuff we want to read, and that's basically what we do is there. So no, I was never really writing these for my daughter, so it was mostly to entertain myself and people who would get the same sort of pop culture references that I'm into. So yeah, it's mostly for other folks, and then I figure when my daughter becomes an adult that she will have more interest in them.
Yeah, it's interesting when authors talk about their kids and their work, because Neil Gaiman did say before that when he's writing anything that he thinks is going to be a children's book, he actually hands it to his kids to read. That was when they were still little, so he could get like an authentic reaction out of them, because they're not going to they're not going to pull any punches about whether or not it's good or bad.
Yeah.
So, okay. Ooh, so many interesting questions. We always have to talk about Joss Whedon. So Catherine Rodriguez asks about Joss Whedon here. Has a Joss Whedon related question, and she says, "Are you or your writing at all influenced by Joss Whedon and his works?"
I wouldn't say so. I wrote these before I had ever watched a single episode of Firefly or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In fact, I still haven't watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, the answer to that one would be no. I do admire what Joss Whedon has done. He's fabulous, but they're not really an influence on my work.
Okay. Buffy's cool.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people love her. I just have never gotten around to it. I just sort of missed that whole phenomenon.
Okay. Rash Kryptonite asks, and this is for everyone who does cosplay. For someone wanting to dress as Atticus for Halloween cosplay, what would you suggest for an outfit that is the epitome of Atticus?
Okay, well, he wears blue jeans, so that should be easy. He wears sandals of some sort without socks, and then he has usually what are called, I think, Henley shirts. They're t-shirts, but then they have buttons here. So he likes to wear cotton, all natural fibers kind of stuff. And then of course there's the necklace, which is actually available online. If you guys ever wanted to snag one, there's an official version by Badali Jewelry that you can snag. And then don't worry about dyeing your hair. He's a redhead, but you don't have to be a redhead to cosplay him. So, because of course, during his career or during his lifetime, Atticus would dye his hair a darker color, to fit in and take on a new persona. So, I don't think you need to change your hair. But then maybe grow a little goatee or some sort of beard. He's very rarely fully clean shaven. He always has some sort of, throughout history, he always has some sort of facial hair going on.
Yeah, he did say at one point, right, that when he and Granuel went into deep hiding, that he had to go clean shaven, that he wasn't completely comfortable with being clean shaven at all.
Yeah, he likes to be have something going on there.
Okay. Marissa Matano has an interesting question, which is, got any tips for young writers hoping to maybe make it with writing and things? Thanks.
Well, I would say don't give up. That's kind of my story. I started writing when I was 19, and I was very, very bad at it for a very long time. It took me 19 years to get published. And I wrote books that will never ever see the light of day for very good reason. They're terrible, but I had to write those terrible books to learn, and I don't regret writing them at all. I don't think any of it is wasted time either, because I'm doing fine now, and it's just a matter of living your life, getting out there and having a life, and then translating that into a story. And if you make characters that are relatable, the plot, again, is going to sort of take care of itself. If you start with the characters and what do they want and what are their goals, and then what's standing in their way, the plot, the conflict suggests itself. So, yeah, just keep at it. Don't give up. And best of luck to you. Hope it works out.
All right. Robert Hayden asks, what do you feel, this links into, us chatting just now about your daughter and being a teacher and all that. And he says, what do you feel would be an appropriate age to introduce the Iron Druid series to a young person?
That's going to be a little bit of parental discretion, but because I do use F-bombs and I do use some crude stuff. In fact, I kind of have this running thing where I try to come up with a really creative curse word every book. But I've had readers as young as 11 come to see me at signings. Okay, so I do have some pretty young readers out there. But then, their parents are obviously cool with it, and they're reading at a pretty high level and that kind of thing. So it just depends on you. Otherwise, I would probably wait until 15 or 16.
Yeah, that was what we were chatting about. During the pre-broadcast session, right? I said I was going to introduce Hounded to the kids I tutor when they turn 16 next year, because they're going to love it. They like swear words. Yeah, young people like swear words. They can swear more than I do. So they can swear, and a friend of mine teaches middle school and international middle school, and she says that every kid there can swear in at least 8 different languages because they teach each other swear words.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. Zachary Harlan asks, do you have a lot of novels or other project ideas going on in that noggin, or do you work project to project?
I do have a bunch of different ideas, and I have different files for those. And when I get a short story idea, I have a folder full of short story ideas that I'll just write down a few words for it and go from there. So, yeah, I have probably 9 or 10 Iron Druid short stories in my head, but I just don't have time to get to them. So I'll get to them eventually, and I should probably mention that I will have an Iron Druid story out early next year. It picks up right after Shattered ends, and it's called A Prelude to War, and it will be in a miniature anthology with Chuck Wendig and Delilah Dawson. And so the 3 of us are going to be putting something together, and right now, A Prelude to War is a short story, but it'll probably get to novella length, the way it's looking right now. So. Okay.
And if anyone wants a little Iron Druid type short story, we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes, and I'll tell you all about that really cool little 100-word short story that Kevin's written just for this campaign. And you know what, Kevin? How on earth did you come up with a story about vampires and peppers?
Actually, yeah, and let's not give too much of it away.
Yeah.
I think you guys would really enjoy this Drabble. It is a scene between Atticus and Leif Helgerson. And Book 8 is really going to be, it's called Staked. So the vampire plot is going to get resolved one way or the other in this 8th book. So if you donate to Read for Pixels, you can actually specifically choose the reward of the Iron Druid Drabble, and I think on the Indiegogo campaign, and she'll send it to you, and it's really a preview of Book 8, because the idea that's presented in just 100 words will get expanded on in the novel. So I recommend that highly to you guys if you want to see a little sneak preview of Book 8. That Drabble will get you going.
Yeah, and it's just for a $15 donation. So you just click on, select a perk, donate $15, and you'll get it. Okay, so we'll wrap up with the final question, which I also really want to know the answer to. It's by John Miller.
Okay.
Did you go back to see the camel yet? Any pictures?
I did. I saw it today. I saw the camel today. We drove up to Rocky Mountain National Park, and I purposely drove back through Loveland and then came down south again so that I could see the camel. And there were two of them. There were two camels this time, and one of them looked like it was sort of white fur, which is sort of unusual. So I was thrilled. And as I drove by, one of them sort of threw up its head and, I don't know, made a camel roar or bugle or whatever it is. It was fabulous. I didn't get a picture, though. It snuck up on us, and we were going 65 miles an hour. It's like, oh, there they are. Oh, crap. Okay, they're gone. So, yeah, we didn't get a picture, but someday we'll get it.
Yeah, what was hilarious was that your daughter and your wife didn't believe you the first time round.
Yeah, this time they saw it. They're like, okay, all right, sure. There's the we saw the camels.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up now before Google Hangout cuts us off.
Okay.
And what I'm gonna do is I am gonna attempt to share the slide. So just to give everybody a little bit of a reminder. This is the Pixel Project's Read for Pixels Google Hangout campaign, and featuring 11 best-selling and award-winning authors such as Kevin here, who is so kind as to take time out of his evening, a Sunday evening, to chat with everybody. And as mentioned earlier, Kevin has generously donated a one-to-one Skype chat, a signed copy of Shattered, and that 100-word short story or drabble that answers that question about vampires and peppers. And we still have a huge stash of, not a huge one, but a really great stash of author goodies up at our Indiegogo page, Read for Pixels Indiegogo page, which Kevin, we smashed the first milestone. The first fundraising milestone was $5,000. We are now over I think the last time we checked, it was $6,290. So everybody, please go get that. If you want to know what's going to happen, like Kevin says, if you want to know what's going to happen in Book 8, please go get that drabble. Help us get to our next milestone by October 15, and the next milestone is $10,000 raised. How about that? So, Kevin, I am now going to attempt to share that slide, which also has Kevin's face in it. Yay! Can you see, Kevin?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So you can donate for geeky goodies, including Habanero Vampire, which is the name of the drabble from Kevin. By Indiegogo, you go to is.gd/R4P Indiegogo. This is case sensitive, so you have to type it in exactly. If you only have PayPal, you can go to is.gd/R4P Razoo, and that donation page accepts PayPal. And you can find out more about Read for Pixels at is.gd/Read for Pixels 2014. And I'm going to stop sharing now. Am I back? Cool.
Yep.
Okay, and to find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it, please visit the Pixel Project's website at www.thepixelproject.net. And here's the thing, because Read for Pixels is set up to raise awareness about violence against women as well. When you get your goodies, we'll also send you a little virtual pack of links that you can click on to download or to go to pages where you can learn more about how to take action about violence against women. And so, Kevin, before we go, do you have any last words for your acolytes? I guess that's what you can call them.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming out today and asking all those questions, and I'm very sorry if I didn't get to yours. I did see one in the queue here about the Star Wars project. Everything that I can tell you right now is that it features Luke Skywalker in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and it's first person from his point of view. And yes, it is canon, if that helps you out. But yeah, thank you guys so much for your support. I really appreciate you reading and coming out tonight, and please donate to Read for Pixels.
Yeah, so everybody, so have a good night or a good morning wherever you are. It's a good night if you're in North America. You probably should be asleep if you are in Europe because it's in the middle of the night there. And have a great day to everyone in Asia and Australasia. And Kevin and I bid you all bye-bye.
Bye-bye.